Here we have Wave 4 of Super 7's Reaction Plus G.I. Joe line, and there are 4 figures. On the left we have Jinx, then Royal Guard, Cobra Commander, and Falcon. And real quick, I'm going to show you the card art for each for those that are interested. Here we have Jinx, there is Royal Guard, and there is Cobra Commander, who is also known as Once a Man Cobra Commander. I did not do the voice. I'm getting over some sort of a virus, so I wasn't able to do a voice very well, but here is Falcon. I actually like the art for Falcon. I think that looks pretty cool. Flip this card around, and it has the 4 latest figures down here at the bottom. They all have file cards, just like all the others do. Well, I'm most interested in taking a look at these figures, so I'm going to free these, and we're going to take a closer look at the figures. And now they are freed, and I think these are the best Reaction Plus G.I. Joe figures from Super 7 yet. Of course, every wave is probably going to build off of and be better than the last, but what do I mean when I say better? Well, Falcon over here, he has a lot more detail on his figure than, let's say, somebody like Duke. Let's set these 3 off to the side, and let's bring Duke in here and do a side-by-side comparison. Very briefly, if we can get Duke to stand there. So, there we have Falcon and Duke. And if you notice, Falcon is a lot more, he's got more detail in the pouches, he's got a scarf. I think the camo's better. You see the buttons a little bit more pronounced on his shirt. And he even has wrinkles and straps on his pants. Whereas when you look at Duke, Duke is flat, smooth, plain. The pouches or the pockets, even on his bandolier, don't come out of the mold very far. He's just a lot plainer looking than Falcon. Straighten up Falcon's head so you can see them more side by side, kind of staring you down. I just think Falcon is an overall improvement next to Duke. Another really cool thing, I'm going to set this light a little bit over here so I can actually reach in. Another neat thing is the head. So originally, a lot of us were a bit perturbed because the heads are back and forth. That's it, back and forth. Well, this wave has introduced, it's a ball joint, and I don't know exactly what it looks like. If you stick around, I'm going to open one of these figures. We'll actually take a look at what it looks like, but look at that. The head goes up and down. It's a little bit difficult, and he can look left and right, and he can also kind of look left down, right down. It adds a lot. This is a lot more like the new G.I. Joe figures from Hasbro, where they have this ball joint with no wings, no little wingtips like we're used to from the original. Here's a quick little example of vintage G.I. Joe next to new G.I. Joe. But I think Super 7 is slowly picking up on what we want and what we're interested in. I still like these for what they are, but I'll be honest, the more they improve, the more I like these a little bit less. But don't get me wrong, I was still excited for the original ones because I could see the future. I could see the potential possibilities with that line. And so that's why I was really, really pretty excited. So we have Falcon. He does all the same things that a reaction G.I. Joe figure does. Bend at the knee, bend at the waist, has an O-ring at the waist, rotation at the shoulders, hinge at the shoulders, rotation and hinge at the bicep, and what we talked about, the ball joint, and that's it. That allows him to get into some poses. If you're really crafty, I'm not on camera, a little bit more not crafty. He comes with his shotgun, or at least this is his shotgun there. He's got a backpack with an antenna. I don't believe the antenna is removable. We take this backpack off, and it is a large peg for a large hole. And again, this backpack won't fit vintage G.I. Joe figures very well, which is unfortunate. Let's jump over here to Once a Man Cobra Commander because he was the furthest away. This figure comes with a spore. Not even a spore you can put in the hand. At least it'd been cool to have like a little peg on the bottom. So, whoops, earthquake. But a little peg on the bottom, so maybe you could put it in the hand or something, but like nothing. Like, okay, we'll set it on the ground, and wow, look at that. That's a ton of fun. I'm having so much fun with my Spore. It's like a top, or let's turn it that way. There we go. It's like a bad top. Anyway, once a Man Cobra Commander from the G.I. Joe, the movie from the 80s. Was it 86 or so? A character that I've heard a lot of people request, a lot of people want from various G.I. Joe lines, and they never got him. At least not that I'm aware of. I can't remember a single figure officially that was released besides G.I. Joe Classified very recently. I think this is a pretty nice looking figure. It blends in very well. It looks like a snake version of the Super 7 Wave 1 Reaction Plus figure. And I know I've read and I've seen some people are pretty unhappy. They think this is a lazy or a weak or a soft looking design. Well, in hand, I think he looks pretty nice. You've got a lot of texturing on the arms and the abs and the chest right there. Nothing really smooth on the foot, but there's a fair amount of texture even up here on the eyes. And I know that some people say that this is not nearly as good as some custom figures out there. And that's true. I mean, detail-wise, absolute, masterpiece figures that are out there. But do you really want to buy and pay for those figures? It doesn't matter how good something is. How much are you willing to pay for it? And if somebody mass-produced those figures that have been made into customs, you'd be paying a lot more than $20 like this figure was. Does that mean you have to pay for less quality? No, I think this is actually pretty good quality. I think this blends in with this Reaction Plus line very well. I don't know if it actually blends in at all with the vintage G.I. Joe line, but here is a vintage G.I. Joe figure to compare with. And I don't know. I mean, I think it looks okay. It's a little scrawnier. The muscles aren't as big, but Cobra Commander was not a big muscly guy. So I think this is actually not too bad, and I think he blends in pretty well. Honestly, I think he actually has a little bit more facial detail than this one right here. But this is all he needs, a mustache and a couple eyes and some eyebrows. So I think he blends in pretty well. Yeah, he's a little bit smoother and scrawnier, but it blends itself very well to the Reaction Plus line. He has all the same points of articulation. He can sit bending at the knees, rotation, waist twist at the waist, rotation and hinge at the shoulder, rotation and hinge at the elbow, and a ball joint neck. So cool. That's so cool. It's the little things in life, right? The little things. And he has a tongue sticking out of his mouth right there. Looks like a goatee, but it isn't. Next, we come to Jinx, because she's awesome. So the original Jinx really was not all... Come on, stay up there. You're like a ninja warrior. You're like a ninja warrior. Stand up and stay there. It's these accessories that are causing the problem. Anyway, she is generally a smooth, soft figure anyway. And I'm referring to the original version 1. It was just the red outfit, the red slippers, and in the vintage case, a mask over the head. So this is actually pretty spot on, I would say. She comes with the accessories that she uses in the movie, except for, instead of one, this is post breaking them in half with her knee. Or was that Beachhead breaking them? I can't remember. Either way, if we get a really awesome animated Beachhead, then she can go to town and kick his rear end, right? She's got this dragon symbol on her chest, and over here on her right leg, it says G.I. Joe. It's the classic logo. She does all the same articulation. Bend at the knees. She can twist at the waist and sit. She can rotate, and she can hinge at the elbow, or at the shoulder. She can twist and hinge at the elbow, and she's got the awesome new ball joint. I even think that's a pretty nice head sculpt. So, you know what? I'll tell you at the end. But yeah, that's pretty fun. Now, I did notice that if you're used to Super 7, you know they paint a lot of skin on figures. Well, let's see here. If you can see right here, it's a little bit hard to see. Let's see if I can come closer. Let's flip a light on here. Oh, I have a light on here. Let's get it right there. So if you can see right there, that's a little bit of paint wear. By sliding this down, like sliding along the hand. In fact, it looks like I can see a little bit rubbed off there. So if you're going to put these accessories in her hands, you're going to want to like punch them right in where you want her to hold them, and then they can hold them. And you won't get as much paint wear, but that's a little bit disappointing. Not a lot of paint wear. Next we get the Royal Guard. And I was a little bit conflicted about this figure because I really like the vintage Royal Guard. And when I first saw pictures, I thought, oh, this looks kind of cheesy. It looks a little bit too colorful. I don't really like it. I don't really like the squished looking face. Then I checked out the animation again, and I kind of had a change of heart. I still really like the vintage Royal Guard, and it's one of my favorites out there for the look. But this one does actually capture the more cartoony, the sunbow version, especially with all the tan camo and everything. Now, one thing I did notice, and you're going to need to be really careful with if you haven't picked up this figure, or if you have, and you haven't put his alien or insecty axe in his hand, his hands, his fingers here, are extremely tight. And I actually got a couple Royal Guards, and one of them, it looks like the thumb is stressing to the point where it just might break. It's extremely difficult to get this in and out, well, at least in. But, like, I'm looking here, and there is a stress mark, and it's like right in the little little section here between the fingers and the thumb, right in there. And I don't think I can get, well, maybe I can if I bring that light back over here. Let's see if I can focus in here. But like, it's difficult in light, but there's like a light piece like right in here, and I can just see it's white, and so I can tell what it is. It's a stress mark. So once you get the axe in, you can get it back in, but it takes a little bit of work, but you can get it back in. Just be careful with this figure. He also comes with a cape. One of them on mine was turned around. The really shiny side, I believe, is the portion that should be aimed on the outward, and the matte side should be aimed inward. Yeah, towards the figure. I had one where it was flipped around, so I thought, wow, that was kind of looking funny. He's got an antenna here that is not detachable as far as I can tell. If it is, just might break taking it off. But anyway, same as all the others. Bend at the knee. Sit at the waist because he has a twist and turn waist. And he's got a shoulder that rotates and hinges. He has a elbow that twists and hinges, and the marvelous ball joint neck. The marvelous ball joint neck. And I was actually thinking I'm going to take this figure apart real quick because I would like to see, but then I just realized I have to take this cape off as well. And this cape can be just a little bit obnoxious. I don't really like the material or how tight, there we go, wow, that popped off. I don't really like the material or how it pops off. This is what he looks like without the cape, and I think he actually looks pretty good without the cape. I don't think the original vintage Royal Guard had a cape. I think he looks pretty good. So we're going to do this real quick. Unscrew. Pop that screw out. And let's reveal what he looks like on the inside. So yeah, it looks pretty similar to vintage. Wow, that is a very tight O-ring in there. Whatever. So it looks like, where's my tweezers? We'll get him by the antenna here. So he definitely has a ball joint, and he actually does have very slight little wingtips. And I'm not really sure why that is. Those don't really do anything. If I put it back in here, and I guess they do kind of stop it, but I didn't think that was the wingtips. I thought that was just the tightness of everything. Huh, that's very interesting. We've got, should I take a vintage figure apart? Should I take a vintage figure apart? I just did. Will Royal Guard's head fit in leather neck? See if I can do this without without blowing the figure apart. So it looks like it is too tight. Gosh, they would have been smart to have made this vintage compatible. Looks like it is too... You can see that's a pretty good gap there. Bring my light over here. Yep, that's pretty good gapping there. So what about Leatherneck? We'll leave the arms off. It is very close. But no, it does not fit. There's something in here that's just not working very well. Oh, that's disappointing. What a missed opportunity. Talk about the customization potential had they... Actually, you know... Let's get this in a good position. If you see what I see, you could modify this just a little bit. There is a little tab here and a little tab right there, and it looks like that. And you could trim down the vintage figures, but that's what looks like is stopping this from setting in there pretty good. What about this side? So same thing, a little notch that and notch that right there, and it looks like the head would then fit in. There's room for the head to fit in there, but it's just not going, which is disappointing. What a wonderful missed opportunity for some cool customizations between Reaction Plus and Vintage. All right, so let's get these things put together and let's wrap things up. So as I said earlier, I think Wave 4 has shown that Super 7's Reaction Plus has come a long ways. Here is Wave 1 Snake Eyes. I'll put over here next to that. And I think you can see that this figure looks really pretty plain, smooth. It's just, there's not a lot of interest to this figure when you compare it to some of these others. The detail is just not there. We've got Serpentor from Wave 2. Now I think that figure is actually, it's kind of gutsy of me to put Serpentor next to Falcon, but anyway, that's where we're at. Serpentor, I think, was a huge step in the right direction as part of Wave 2 because there is a ton of detail on this figure. Now, if only he would have had the ball joint head, I think he would have been a pretty perfect figure in that regards. He's got the green cape, and he looks a little bit more like the cartoon than the original action figure. And, you know, it's interesting because Bat from Wave 1 actually had a fair amount of detail as well, mixed in with the smoothness on the legs and the chest area. Wild Bill from Wave 3, I'm running out of space to show off stuff. I think he's a little bit bulkier in the legs, maybe not in the muscles, but I'm not sure how many pilots or helicopter pilots have, like, bulging muscles. But I think Wild Bill actually looks a whole lot like a vintage style figure because the original Wild Bill was, I don't know, he had like a big head with small legs. This guy at least has a little bit more proportionate legs versus compared to the body. And he still has kind of a big head because he's got this built-on, molded-on hat. But I think they have actually come quite a ways since Wave 1, and I can't wait to see how far they improve in the future. These are just really cool. And I said in a previous video that one of the things that bothered me about Delta 17 was the shine. Same thing here. I think these are just a little bit too shiny for my taste, but I know a lot of you don't agree, and that's fine. But I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out because I'm pretty sure there'll be a couple people who will comment like, hey, you said something about Delta 17 being too shiny. Why didn't you say that about these figures? So I had to throw that in just to make sure I covered my bases on these figures. There you go. Look how shiny they are when I turn a light on and aim it right at them. But anyway, I really do like the figures. Keep in mind, with Delta 17, if the shine is really about the only thing I can say about those figures, they're pretty darn close to perfect. I really like Delta 17. So that is an extremely minor gripe. And it's, as I said, it's a very personal one. Same with these. I really like Super 7 Reaction Plus. I think they are very cool. I think they look really awesome. And if about the only thing I can complain about right now on Wave 4 is the shine, then that's a very minor personal gripe. I would take all 4 of these Wave 4 figures any day over Wave 1 or Wave 1 Snake Eyes, Wave 2 Duke, just because I think they're better. I sure hope we get maybe some updated, we have an updated Snake Eyes, and I know none of you really want another Snake Eyes or another Duke. You want more original niche characters. Hey, let me throw out a couple ideas, and you can tell me in the comments below what you think. But with Super 7 trying to go really niche, find those kind of out-of-the-way characters, I know a lot of people want Python. I think that'd be really cool. I also think Big Lob would be really awesome, because we had to get Big Lob from the Collectors Club. But here's a crazy idea. What about Zorana in swimsuit outfit after she, runs away from the base and is, meeting up with the Dreadnoks? Or dare I say, if you want an extremely deep cut, how about topless Zorana?